you ever wished that you had a master floral designer that you could have stand beside you step by step and teach you the process of floral design? My name is Kirby Holt. I'm a master floral designer with more than 25 years of experience in the business, and I want to show you step by step how to create beautiful floral designs with the kits from myfloraldesign.com. I hope you enjoy this video and this series. Well, thank you for joining me for another demonstration of floral design. Today I'm going to create an arrangement in a French style garden basket. This is a metal basket. These galvanized containers have been very popular in interior design and using as accessories for a few years now, and so it continues as part of that trend. And I'm going to create a beautiful centerpiece arrangement that would work well for a long low table, whether it would be a coffee table or a dining table or a breakfast table. This works well for a longer table because I'm going to create kind of a long arrangement. I'm going to talk you through step by step so that if you want to go to the website myfloraldesign.com, you can order this kit, and everything that you need to make the arrangement is in the kit. Now today I'm just using a pair of basic little wire cutters, some shears, and a knife, and those will give you exactly what you need to create this arrangement. I know sometimes we'll use a hot glue gun and put just a little dot of glue and glue everything in as we go. That you can do at your discretion. It will hold together pretty well without the glue, but it certainly holds together better if you glue everything together. I'm going to start with this hydrangea bush and cut it apart, just kind of dissect it. I'm going to cut it all the way down next to the big stem at the bottom so that that just finishes that off. And then I'm going to come and trim these stems so that above the bottom leaf on each one. Some of these we have two stems, so that I will cut this away, save that, and then set the blooms to the side. Now on this bush you have 5 smaller blooms and 2 larger blooms, so that we will use those separately and specifically as we go forward with the arrangement. Again, one more that has 2 stems. Now these leaves that we've harvested off of the bottom, we can just use those along the bottom or the top edge of the container, bottom of the arrangement. Now this stem is a little long, so we'll trim it off, and I've just put those one on each side of that handle. And rather than having the handle straight up, I'm just moving it to one side just a little bit. Now I'm going to take one of these taller white hydrangeas, and I'm going to trim about another inch off of that so that when I put it in, that leaf is going to stick down close to the styrofoam, and this makes your center insertion, and that's really important for determining how tall the arrangement will be, because it's going to flow out from here and flow down from there. So this is your center, and usually this is the first insertion you want to make when making an arrangement. Now I'm going to take a couple of these hydrangeas, and notice that the leaves are laying kind of to one side here, and I want to use that in my favor. So I'm going to push those off to the side and let those leaves kind of lay under that bloom so that we don't see the back. I don't want to see the back of that leaf. I don't like seeing the back side of the leaf, so I try to make sure as I'm turning those in, I'm aware of where those leaves are falling. Same thing on the other end. And this makes the basic length of the arrangement. Now I have a second of those larger hydrangea blooms, so I'm going to place one of those over to this side, and it is going to fall almost equally between those two flowers, hydrangea blooms. Now on this side, I'm going to place one of the smaller blooms to one side, and then I'll just turn that so you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to put one off to the side here. Then I'm cutting one more leaf off because I need that to be just a little bit shorter, and I'm going to insert that off to the side here. Then we'll just use that last leaf. So we've used that whole hydrangea bush and created the frame of the arrangement, and also used those leaves to base in the arrangement, kind of hide the styrofoam and moss, and just create the bottom of the arrangement. Now the next element that we're going to put in is this bush of peonies, and I'm going to take my clippers and just come in and cut that apart. Just cut right through that raffia, and underneath the raffia is a little bit of wire. Just cut all of that apart and separate those. And generally we put the larger blooms in first. We've already inserted all of the hydrangea, but we want to come in with all of these larger peony blooms next, because as you develop the arrangement, you have smaller and smaller spaces that are left open. So if you start with the biggest flowers first and work your way down from that, then it keeps you from having to create a big space for a big flower when you're almost finished. So these stems are going to be a little bit long, so I'm going to cut maybe just about 3 inches off. There's actually a little nub right there. That makes it hard to get into the foam, so I'm going to cut right above that nub. And one of the things, these stems are real thick, that you may want to do is just trim a little bit of that away, so that you're not trying to get that stem that's the size of your pinky almost. This is a lot easier to insert into the foam. So I'm going to push that in, and I want the head of that peony to kind of rest in underneath that top hydrangea and between the other hydrangea that we have placed there. This one I'm going to cut more off of. That I would say is about 5 inches, and I'm going to trim the stem down some. Going to turn so you can see. Again, I don't want to put it perfectly beside it, so I'm going to come over underneath the larger hydrangea to the center and leave just a little bit of space, and then have that bud kind of sit right in between them there. So that kind of fills in next to that handle. I'm going to turn it again, and we will put another one here on this side. I love these peonies. Peonies are really a very, very popular flower for weddings, for interior decorating. Now this stem I'm going to cut about 6 inches off of, and that's only going to leave about maybe a little over 3 inches from the leaf to the bottom. Trim that down some so the insertion is easier. Now, of course, if you wanted to add hot glue to each of the bottoms of those stems, it would really tighten everything up. But as long as you put about 1 inch or so of that stem into the foam, I'm going to trim just a little bit more. As long as you put about 1 inch or so into that foam, you don't have to worry about it falling out, because it will grab it and really hold tightly to it. Now, so that is just sitting just above that handle. You can see the handle, and both of these peonies are coming about an inch above that handle there. Now I'm going to move this hydrangea up just a little bit so that I create an opening for this peony, and I'm going to cut about 6 inches off of that stem, just above that nub, trimming away some of the excess so that it's not so difficult to make that insertion right in here under that hydrangea bloom. And you can use the wires in the stems to kind of manipulate the blooms and put them where you want them to go. And then for the other end down here, we have one more of the large peonies. We have 5, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th one. So we've kind of spaced those throughout the design. Again, taking about 6 inches off of that stem, trimming the bottom 1.5 inches or so to make the insertion easier. Now, you notice this wire is not secure real tight in there, but the other wire is. And if you wanted to take a little bit of hot glue and glue that to it, but it's all going to hold together fine for you. Nothing's going to come apart just because that wire is loosened up just a little bit on the inside of the stem. So here, those are so much in a little straight line. I'm just going to kind of bend this, let it go to one side just a little bit, let that peony kind of look off to the other side. Same thing with this one. I'm going to let this peony go to this side just a little bit so that they're not all in a straight little row. We have 2 more of the smaller peony blooms, and I want to put one of those right up in the center here. and the other one up in the center. Again, I'm taking about 4 inches off of each of those, and it will go off of the center here. In an arrangement like this, the eye tends to go toward the middle of the arrangement first, and so that's where we've put some of our larger elements and some of our smaller elements clustered there. We do have one large peony, or kind of medium-sized peony left, and I think we probably need it most right here. I'm going to just bend this hydrangea down just a little bit. That creates a nice opening, so you can kind of let your eye help you determine where those open spaces are. This is going to need about 6 inches taken off to make it fit nicely into that space. I'm going to trim just about 1 inch excess off. Fills that hole in perfectly. Now, we're going to use some of the Dusty Miller in this bush for the foliage all the way around the bouquet, the arrangement, and I'm going to cut those right at the very end of each of the wires. Just trim all of those away. I love the way this whitish gray foliage works well with the white in the hydrangea. So these leaves on the bottom are loose, and you can just kind of push them up just a little bit so that they cluster or crown out near the top edges more. We're going to put the majority of these leaves around the bottom edges. Each one I'm going to just push up gently. This one's a longer one, so it can come out here to this longer end. We'll take another one and come in between those to fill in the space here. And one of the things I do, get these insertions in, and after you finish, you can come back and straighten and move things around just a little bit and make sure you have them in the spot you want them to be if necessary. You see every one of these, just gently pushing that up. Bring this right in under that hydrangea bloom. I love the way that these colors, while they're very similar, the textures really complement each other as well. Now I want to take one of the double ones. See, this one has a set of leaves here and a set of leaves here. I'm going to use that out toward the end because these wires tend to be a little bit longer, and I can come in right between this peony and hydrangea and tuck that one in so that it will lay in right in between those and kind of soften and fill in that space. I'm going to go around the other side of the container and fill it in the same way we did the first side. Technology is wonderful that I can present these design seminars to you, and you can just turn your video on and off as you need to. It's very easy if you want to start and stop and start and stop, then it allows you to follow along with me. All of the kits that are presented are available at myfloraldesign.com, and we really chose that name because we wanted you to be able to become a floral designer, and I want to help you achieve that goal. I know for many years I enjoyed floral design as a hobby before I became a professional floral designer, and it's been a very rewarding experience because it's something I love to do and I get to do it as a career. So I've created the kind of collar all around the lower edge. I have a couple of the Dusty Miller left. This one's a little taller, so I'm going to crown it out toward the top and put that here so that we get a little bit of that color up in the arrangement. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing again. Right in here. Now our last insertions are going to be this berry bush. And just like we've done with the Dusty Miller and other bushes, we're going to just cut those right next to the stem of the bush. Separate them all out. A wonderful way to use this, of course, on a long, low coffee table or a long dining table. Often we will put a round arrangement on a long table and it doesn't fill the space as it should. So by going a little bit long, it works well if you have a longer table. Now some of these are long enough that we can separate the two of them and have two areas that we can use these berries. Because the stems are shorter, I'm going to pull that leaf down toward the bottom a little bit so it's not out so long. But because the stems are shorter, we want to place those kinds of insertions down low in the arrangement. And most of these berries, that one's kind of sitting in, but we want to let most of them kind of sit out above the arrangement a little bit. I'm going to take the berry and push it up, but I'm not pushing that bottom leaf up. And tuck that right in here. And that way we have just a little bit of softness coming out across those top edges. This is a little bit of a plume, almost like a heather plume, and it contrasts well with that berry. And put another one of those up in here. And these really give us a little bit of that wildflowery effect to it. Before, it was very much a garden type arrangement, but by putting these berries and heather type plumes in, it loses that garden style, gets a little bit of that weedy, almost wildflowery kind of look to it. I'm just going to place those all around the edges. Turn that so you can see what I'm doing. We just want to make sure that we're getting a ½ inch or so of that stem into the styrofoam. And if you can just barely put it in, then that would be a place you would certainly want to bring a little bit of hot glue, because by just putting a little dab of glue right on the tip, if you don't have a lot of the wire to push that all the way into the styrofoam with, then that little dab of glue will help hold it where you put it and not let it slide around. Now we have an opening or a hole right in here. I'm going to push that leaf down some and put this one tucked down in, but we'll put another one in beside it so that we get a little coming out away for that second layer or second level right in there. I'll come in with this little plume just above that berry, and that finishes and creates a nice little bit of texture right in there. I think we'll bring this plume right into this side. And just continuing just to kind of use my eye. I think we need something right in here. So maybe we'll take this last plume, put it right in there. And we have one less berry stem. I think maybe on this end down here. And then sometimes we can just use the blooms that are in here and just adjust and manipulate just a little bit, so that if there's a little bit of an opening or a hole, we can use the materials as the placement of them to fill that in and keep it from having a big hole there. Okay, so there is a beautiful centerpiece that'll work well for a dining table, a breakfast table, even a kitchen bar. And one of the things I haven't talked about in this session, but a great place to do your designing is at your kitchen bar, because the level of the counter is a little bit higher and you don't have to bend over so much. Because if you're standing over a lower table for an hour, bending and pushing all of the arrangement together, it starts to work on your back. But if you go to your kitchen counter, or even lift your table up just a little bit higher on some books or something to raise the level, it makes it a lot more comfortable for you while making your arrangement. I hope you've enjoyed this today, and hope you'll consider buying this one, because I think it would be beautiful in your home. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I encourage you to browse the library of arrangements and videos on our website, myfloraldesign.com.